So, hey, everybody, it's Bob McCraney with the Flee Red States Project, and we are with Texas Pride Realty, brokered by Home Smart Stars. And today I have a friend of mine, Lyle, who has actually gotten out before I did. And Lyle, just tell us a little bit about your story and how you came up with the idea of maybe moving, and a little bit about yourself and where you're at, if you're willing to share.
Sure. I'm originally from Iowa. I moved to Dallas, Texas in 1987 and started with a company there and lived really for 35 years in Dallas, Texas. Met my husband in 1997. We got married in 1999, which wasn't legal. And then, of course, got legally married in 2015. In 2016, my husband approached me and said, if we sell our house, and then use your 401k a little bit later and do well in the stock market with some other of our investments, we can retire early and get out of Dallas, get out of Texas, and get out of the US and move to Spain. He actually is fairly fluent in Spanish, so that was a big draw for us. Paris was my city, but was unaffordable within our budget. So when we looked at Spain, it checked off every box. It checked off universal health care. It checked off gay marriage. It checked off acceptance of foreigners and actually inviting foreigners to take part in their communities and in their society. The weather is amazing. You're close to anywhere you want to get to in Europe. So you can travel. This past weekend for my birthday, we drove up 5 hours to Andorra to go skiing. We've gotten in our car and we've driven through the French and Italian Alps for a vacation. My sister came to visit and we took a jaunt up to Paris for a week. We did a northern trip in Spain with another one of my sisters. So it just checked off every box. But the biggest box it checked off was affordability, healthcare, and acceptance of people coming into the community. And that was a big deal for us. I will admit, I do struggle with the language. I'm in lessons, and we've been here now 3 years, and that's a struggle. But I never have felt intimidated or unwelcome or fearful because I couldn't speak the language. So
Interesting.
A quick synopsis of what we were looking for when we decided the U.S. was ready for us to move out of.
Okay, in that process of understanding that the U.S. is ready for us to move out, I had a very similar process. We have a mutual friend who I won't name, who's now in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, had a very similar process. We met obviously in Dallas, and that's how our paths crossed. I was having conversations with my friends. We'd go to dinner and we'd sit around. And this was, I think, when the first Trump presidency was coming into play.
Yep.
And our conversations would ultimately turn to, oh my God, how crazy is this? Where are you thinking of going? What are you thinking of doing? And what I noticed was my friends all had different ideas about Portugal or Costa Rica or Panama, or do you have a parent or grandparent born in another country? Let's talk about, ancestral, like being able to reach back 2 generations to Ireland. But that one's 3 generations back. I can't get that one because it's too far back. And these conversations were happening, whether, I wasn't instigating them. It would just come up.
Right.
Tell me what it was, the awakening moment for you, where you and your husband, where you were like, this is not just an idea. This is something we should move forward with. And I'll tell you mine in a minute.
Yeah, sure. So we traveled to Europe a lot. I mean, I would go to Paris for a weekend for almost 15 years in a row. And then we'd also go on a larger trip almost every year to Europe. So Europe was always on our radar of a dream or a goal to eventually sometime in our lives experience from more than just a vacation standpoint. So that was always kind of there. However, it accelerated when things started to get crazy. Just the whole rise of Trump until finally his election in 2016. And in 2016, it was a really an awakening of, okay, it's time to do this. It can't be just an idea anymore. We have to sit down and say, can it be done? Can we really do it? And if so, start the wheels turning to get it done. Um, uh, we we are I hate to say, I mean, America and the United States is my country. It is, and I will always be an American, and I will always love my country. My family still lives there. My nieces, my great nieces, and nephews still live there. Um, but it isn't someplace I wanted to be anymore. I mean, the healthcare situation, working till you're dead, not being able to retire until you're at least 65 because of healthcare. Um, no matter how much money we had, taxes on our house were going to be unbelievable. So we were going to have to sell our house eventually. And okay, well then why even be there? So we decided there's got to be a better option. And as we started looking at Europe, we realized the cost of living, universal health care. Taxes are high, yes, but what you get for them makes them palatable. In the US, you still pay taxes, you just don't seem to get anything for them anymore. And all you get is, if you're different or in a marginalized community, all you get is heartache and pain, even while you're doing all the right things. So it was really that push in 2016. We probably would have gotten here earlier if it wasn't for the pandemic. However, that kind of put us in a better place, to be honest, in the long run, for that extra year and a half delay. But really in 2016, when everything was kind of going crazy and we knew kind of the path things were moving on, with Trump winning in November. After that, we knew it wasn't going to get any better. So it was time to start really getting down into the weeds, figuring it out, and starting the processes. So that's kind of what pushed us.
I have a very similar, thank you for sharing all that. I have a very similar story. My first trip to the UK was in 2013, came over with a singing situation through, the chorale, and, met up with a group of people from the King Singers. And so it was just kind of this interesting trip to take. And 2016 rolls around and Hillary lost the election and Trump comes in. And very similar idea to yours is that was the night I felt my country left me.
Yep.
I grew up from a very patriotic family. Grandparents, parents served in the military, brother served in the military, stepfather served in the military. I had a flagpole in front of my house, as one does in your neighborhood. I honored the country. That night I felt the country left me. And that was where it went from being, oh, this might be a fun idea, to I need to lay some groundwork for this. And it was a matter of starting to look seriously at golden visas, student
Mm-hmm.
visas, digital nomad visas, retirement visas. How is it we can do this? Who has a parent, grandparent, aunt, or uncle somewhere that we can use lineage for? Because if you study history, you understand when a population is dispossessed, when a population is forced to migrate, they lose wealth, especially the ones who wait till the end,
Right.
especially the last ones to go. The water's too hot. Now what do we do? I had my mom to take care of at the time, so I couldn't go ahead and execute the plan. And then COVID came along. Mom survived COVID and then ultimately passed in 23. And that's when I was able to get everything wrapped up and make my exit. I've been back to Texas twice now since then. I can tell you it's such a cultural shift to go back to where you used to live and see all the people with their bigoted bumper stickers and their lifted trucks and their, we're good old boy attitude. And it's not that that's who they identify with, it's that they so identify against who you are.
Right.
It's great if you want to be that great, congratulations. But with that, a lot of that attitude is to be anti everyone else and to project that attitude upon the people around you. It's just weird to go back to that and go, I lived here for 35 years. This is the environment in 1992 I came out in. And to live in another environment that does not care who you are, congratulations, great. You're welcome at our table. You're welcome
Right.
here. Why would you ever think you weren't? And they don't get, well, I think they're getting now from the national press. They're getting it now. Oh, that's what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I've been in Spain now. We just sent in our renewal for our last 2-year renewal of our visa before we become permanent residents. And I've been back for 8 days. I was back for 8 days in the U.S. Since leaving on February 20th of 2022. And in those 8 days, like the third day in, I was like, I can't be here. I don't want to be here.
Tell me more
And
about that. Tell me more about
yeah,
that.
so I had gone back because I needed to renew my Texas driver's license because we wanted to keep our Texas residency. We do have our residency still in Texas. So I had to do my driver's license renewal in person. So I flew back to Iowa to visit my family. My husband flew into Dallas to go to New Mexico to visit his family. And then after 4 days, we met back in Dallas to do my driver's license renewal, catch up with friends there, and then head back to Spain from Dallas. I enjoyed my time with my family. I got to go to an Iowa football game, and that was quite nice. But when we got to Dallas, I was like, I don't remember it being like this. We were in the car and there was massive amounts of people and no one seemed happy. And like the second day in, we had 4 days there. I was like, I'm ready to go back now. And we were there for 2 more days and went to our favorite restaurants and had some great Mexican food, but it was just not the same. After knowing what it can be like in a large community, um, uh, and then being back in Dallas where no one talks to each other. It's loud. People don't care if they step in front of you. The roads are congested and no one cares. It's like whoever can get there fastest and first without getting in an accident. And that's the complete opposite of Valencia. We live in Valencia, where people sit out and talk to each other. Families go to the park together. People walk on the Turia and say hi and wave to people. Hola, and buenas. And it's just a completely different concept of existing in a city versus what we were in Dallas. And it was so vivid when we got back to Dallas just for a couple of days. And I haven't been back since. And I don't plan on going back unless I have to for any specific reason. I don't see myself hopping on a plane and going back to Dallas. I'm hoping my family continues to come here. They did last year, and that'll be our opportunity to see each other versus me coming there. So, but yeah, it's a completely different feel once you've been out of the U.S., viewing it from outside, and then being back in it. It's like, oh my God, I didn't realize it was like this. you know,
Right. So if somebody is listening to this and thinking about starting their path, what would be like 3 or 5 things you would tell them to put into their plan? I
sure.
would think that the first thing would be go visit some places.
You
But
know, you
what
know,
would
it's
be like
interesting.
5 things
I
that you would put into to play?
Yeah, I would say that too. What's interesting though is me and John, we had only been to Valencia for 36 hours before we chose it and committed to buying property here, which is unusual. We were actually with the Corral in 2010. We were in Valencia overnight, and then we came back in 2017 on a cruise for an afternoon. So we jumped into Valencia without having a lot of time spent here checking it out. We are in an expat group here, a gay expat group, where people do come for 2-3 weeks to see if it's really where they're going to be. So that is definitely something you should think about before you decide to buy property. The other thing I would do is I would if you're really committed to doing it because of tax situations, I would unload your real estate in the US at least a year before you choose to buy in a foreign country.
Tell me
Because
why.
you have to pay taxes on any capital gains off of your house sale at least in Spain, if you sold it within 180 days of moving into Spain. We sold our house a full year in advance, so that helped us from a financial standpoint right away. Something to think about. I would sit down and run the numbers. You have to be comfortable, especially if you're moving on a non-lucrative visa to Spain, which is the retirement visa, where you're not allowed to make personal wages or personal income within a job. You have to have all of your income coming in through investments and portfolios. You have to be ready to make sure that you can make a go of it long term from a financial standpoint. Because the last thing you want to do is to have to deal with all the paperwork, deal with moving, learning a new language, possibly being in a new culture, and then have to worry about money. So make sure that you have all of your finances in a row. And then also you have to be really, really judicious through the process of getting your visa, because it is very complicated. There are a lot of documents to get. There are time requirements on how long documents stay valid before you have to get them again.
Did you hire a firm or an
Yes,
attorney to help you?
we have an attorney here in Valencia that worked on our initial visa, worked on our initial rental that we had in the city, worked on the property buy that we purchased here in Canet, just north of the city, has done our renewal, is working on our current renewal, and then we'll work on our permanent residency as well. So we do have somebody that we're working with from literally since, the September of 2021 that we've been working.
I've heard that that's absolutely the way to go. No matter
Yeah,
which country you
yeah.
pick, whether it's, I have somebody who's in Portugal and they went through a service. Their services here in the UK and in Ireland. I've heard that that's absolutely, just get somebody who's been down the trail to help you get through it. Because if you try to figure it out yourself, you'll just pull all your hair out.
And I would suggest having somebody in the country, possibly even the city that you're planning on moving to, because that way they know people that can help you get your bank account set up, can help you
Right.
get health insurance while you're not here, can give you a property buyer that is very reputable to help you find property that's decent and then get you in those properties. So I would recommend somebody in the city, and then you can meet with them live and in person, and they can continue working with you after the process of you getting here, which also doesn't end. I mean, once you get here, you then have to register with your local community. You have to then get your immigration TIE cards. You have to work on getting your driver's license, and they can help with that, especially if they're local. So I would suggest that even as well. Not as necessarily, but I think it would be helpful to have somebody local.
It's always good to have a friend where you're going to.
Oh,
And you
absolutely.
mentioned an expat community.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have found, and maybe you can help me with this, I have found expat communities all over Facebook. For everywhere you would think about going, there's an expat community that's
Correct.
organized at least on social media that you can tap into.
Yep, I would agree. Yeah,
But
John, my husband, was in 3 expat communities on Facebook before we got here, and then we were lucky enough to meet and join into an actual gay expat group. The really cool thing about our expat group is it's not all American. We have people from South America, we have people from Central America, we have people from all over Europe. The good thing is that the common language is English, so that does help. So I don't feel totally like isolated. But I also wasn't looking at just recreating an American community just in Spain. So we do have Spanish friends. Our neighbors are really amazing and are open to us being from America. I love my teacher, my Spanish teacher. I do a one-on-one session, so we get along really well, and I love spending time with her and her little girl and her boyfriend. But then again, like I said, our expat community here, we have people from Sweden and the UK and Belgium and Germany and France and Italy, Romania, Ukraine. So it's just that's more as important, I think, as just getting out of the U.S. is also getting involved with people that aren't American. because that's
So,
the excitement of being somewhere other than
right,
America. If I just wanted to move to Mexico, and we have friends that moved to Puerto Vallarta and they love it, but they're with all other Americans in Puerto Vallarta. We moved
right,
literally to Spain knowing nobody. And while that can be scary, it can also be really exciting. And it has been
right.
exciting.
So let's talk about culture shock situations. What is it that you like look around and go, oh my God, if America knew about this, they would adopt this?
Everything. No, I'm almost, actually, there is nothing in Spain that I think they've adopted from the US that I like. Um, uh, what the things that I like most about Spain that aren't American, obviously healthcare. Healthcare here is amazing. I mean, I can't even describe it for the cost and what you get. It's amazing. Um,
But let me pause you there. We get how to phrase this. We get trained, groomed to always respond with, well, people fly to America to get health care. We're the best healthcare system, that you can get. You have to wait for weeks and months to see somebody. Can you break down those three tropes that we as Americans are just gut level going to respond with? Like it's like you hit the knee and the leg kicks up, the Pavlovian response that we're groomed into saying to defend the capitalist healthcare system.
sure. So yeah, first of
What
all,
would you
for
say to
every,
those?
sure, absolutely, people do go to the United States for healthcare, but for every one person that goes to the United States for healthcare, hundreds don't. Okay, so people in Spain aren't flocking to the U.S. for healthcare, and we're one of the healthiest countries in the world. Okay, that's not to say that there aren't some amazing procedures that are happening in the US. But like I said, for every one person that goes to the US for healthcare, hundreds don't and still have amazing healthcare. Number one. Number two, I'm going to give you one quick story about my experience with healthcare in Spain. I have asthma, really bad asthma, and I have really bad allergies. In the US, with insurance, I was getting nasal injections of cortisone. I was taking Allegra D every day, and I was using Sinex Vicks or whatever it is, nasal spray, just to stay breathing. Those three things cost me about, with insurance, cost me about $96 a month. Okay? I came to Spain. Our insurance here is $300 total for no deductible, no copay, 100% coverage. Okay. John said, why
300
don't we
total
go
for both of you.
for both of us total? Okay.
Okay.
Why don't we go see an allergist? We call up our insurance. They give us the name of an allergist that speaks English. I go to the allergist. I'm able to get in a week. Okay. So I didn't have to wait.
That's
Okay.
normal.
When I get into my allergist, he asked me what I'm doing and what I have been doing. I tell him everything I was doing in the US. He said, stop everything. Everything that you were doing in the US was meant to keep you doing it. He took a
Say
blood
that again
test.
for the people in the back.
Okay. Everything you were doing in the US for your nasal and was to keep you breathing was to keep you using it. Keep you using Allegra D. Keep getting nasal injections. Keep using Sinex nasal spray. He took a blood test to find out what I was actually allergic to, free of charge, didn't cost me a thing. He said, okay, I found what you're allergic to. We have a nasal spray that you're going to use. You're going to go get to it's really over the counter technically, but the first time you get it, you have to have a doctor saying that this is what you need. Take it for twice a day for a month, and then after that, take it once a day for another 2 weeks, and then down to the point where you take it once every Monday morning. I take it now once every Monday morning. This is 7 days.
And you're fine.
And you know how much that cost me for the year?
How
Because
much did
this
that cost you?
this this vial of nasal spray will last me a full year. Cost me $16.
I don't
That's
know if
just
I
an
can afford
example.
that. I don't know
Just
if
an
I can afford
example.
that. Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't have to wait. I got a viable option. I didn't have to go to the US to figure it out. So, I mean, it's just, it isn't what you, for-profit healthcare, and I worked in healthcare for 35 years on the consulting side,
Well, I
is
didn't remember
just
that.
that. Is just that. Is just, I mean, for-profit healthcare is for profit. It's right in the name. Universal healthcare is to keep you healthy so it doesn't cost you so much every time you go. Okay.
Interesting.
So we've been very lucky and very happy so far. So
Interesting. You're really selling me on this. You're really selling me on this. And you know what? Let me just repeat. We both love our country. I grew up absolutely being American, but I think what we get into is, for lack of a better phrase, tribalism.
Yep.
It's like, well, you're a I hate to say a Dallas Cowboys fan, hypothetically. Well, you're always just going to favor them no matter what,
Right.
because that's what you do. If you're an American, the nationalism is, prevalent, and I believe in that. But
So
I
the other
think it's
big
okay to wake up and see other things.
the other thing I really like about being outside the US is people want to be around each other here. They sit out at the cafes, they talk to each other, they talk to us when they hear us speaking English because they want to know where we're from. Families actually go to the park together and hang out together. The festivals are amazing. We go to some of these festivals and there's little kids dressed up in all their little costumes and all their traditional outfits, marching down the street in their parades and
Oh,
their processions. And young adults, young kids around 10, 11. I can guarantee you, if a kid at the age of 11 would put on a traditional outfit in the US and walk in a parade, they would be made fun of. They would be chastised.
yeah,
And to see these young kids embrace their culture and their families and their pride in who they are and what they're doing, it's just it's amazing. It's so refreshing compared to you better not do crap like that in the States or somebody's going to beat you up.
right,
Isn't that
right.
crazy?
Which is not just our perception, but I do think as gay men, I grew up being harassed in high school. I always knew that the three-letter F word was the worst thing that I could be called
Yeah.
in school. Um, and I think we maybe, I mean, what year did you? I came out in '92 when the community was still
Um,
being impacted by HIV and AIDS. Everything
yeah.
was still. We were a community in crisis, and a community that was combating a lot of things, trying to get our rights and our health care.
Yeah.
And to one, be watching that all go away and being dismantled and being dismissed
Right.
is incredibly, because in the first round we didn't have it and we were fighting for it. We have it now and they're taking it away from us,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
feels even worse. It
So
feels even worse. So to have an environment in a country and a place that welcomes us and is not adversarial. The mechanisms of our government are not targeting us
right.
is such a relief.
My community here is we're like I said, we're just north of the city on the Mediterranean beach coast. It's called Canet de Berenguer. It's a tiny little town. It's about 6,000 people. Our Judemente, our city hall, proudly has flags for Pride Week, proudly has flags for Trans Awareness Day, proudly has flags for International Women's Day. And this is a community of 6,000 people where the majority of them are over the age of probably 60, 70 years old. Little old ladies walking our street that just fawn all over me and John when we're out walking and talking to them. And they all know. I mean, it's not hard to see that me and
Right.
John are husband and husband, and they love it. The lady that lives below us just is like hugs and hugs and hugs every time she sees John and I. So it's just a very different feel from number one, not knowing your neighbors in Dallas, even when you're in a house necessarily,
Right.
And then being in a situation where I look at some of my friends in Dallas and see their neighbors with Trump flags all over, and that can't be fun. I mean, it just can't be fun.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And let's take that a step further. My company, Texas Pride Realty Group, we used to be welcoming people into Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston, and saying, "Hey, if you're in the Metroplex, you're fine. I mean, don't go crazy, but you're going to be fine. Everybody will, be nice, and they may talk behind your back, but we're going to talk about them too, so that's easy. But if you go outside of the Metroplex, you need to be careful because you're going to run into white power flags, and you're going to run into people who are be openly adversarial to you."
Yeah.
And that was my company for many years. And now my company has turned into, hey, you need to be careful no matter where you are.
Yeah, that is
You need to be
correct.
careful. So to see pride flags all over government buildings and all over shops, and I tell this story. My husband at the time and we went to Ireland, and we took the bus from Dublin all the way over to the Cliffs of Moher because we wanted to do that day trip. And there's a town. It's a 4-hour bus trip. There's a town at 2 hours across. So their whole community is all about feeding the buses as they stop for the restroom
Right.
break, and there's 5 restaurants, and this cottage industry is feed the buses. And we got off the buses 2 hours in, and we were picking our restaurant in the middle of rural Ireland. Pride flags.
Yep. No,
In the
you're
middle
right.
of rural Texas, you're not going to see that.
No,
There's a
no.
way to show people they're welcome. There's a way to show people you belong. And there's
Mm-hmm.
also a way to tell you, you need to be out of this town by sunset. You
Yep,
need to not be
absolutely.
here.
Yep, yep,
And
yep.
that's the dynamic difference that you feel when you go to someplace you're appreciated.
Yep. And it's funny because, like I said, my little town is 6,000 people. And when you drive in, there is a big placard right next to the sign that says Canet de Berenguer, Bienvenus. It says that we do not tolerate gender violence. I mean, and would I ever see that even in Dallas? Not many places, to be honest.
No.
So just very
Yeah.
different. Yeah, yeah, yep. So
One of the other bloggers I follow, and his blog is aimed at 7 and 8 figure people, income people, and helping them get to places where their wealth will be protected, which that's great. His thing. He
sure.
came up with this metaphor, and I borrowed it many times. If you go to a restaurant and you have bad service and they treat you poorly and the food is crap, you do not keep going back to that restaurant, right? You tell all your
Nope.
friends and you go to a better, you take your money and you go someplace
Somewhere
better.
else.
Okay. If you live in a state that takes away your rights and oppresses your people and treats you like crap, no, we have to stay there and vote against it because maybe that restaurant will get better if we just keep going there. You need to
Ain't gonna
stay
get
there and
better.
keep voting against that, and that way you can change it over time. I don't have to keep going to the same crap restaurant. I have the right to pick up my stuff and move. Now, there will always be people who can't, and that makes sense, whether it's because of economic reasons or because they have family ties or whatever. I get that. They're making choices.
Yep.
I'm going to make choices, and people around me are going to make choices to do what they can. And that is an issue of affluence. That is an issue of being privileged to make those choices. And I acknowledge that. I can't solve poverty. But I did have one person call us a trans person in the middle of Texas, couldn't get out, didn't know what to do. And I looked up online and I was like, hey, $300, you can catch a Greyhound and get to Los Angeles.
Yep.
If there's a will, there's a way. Okay. So there is another organization called rainbowrailroad.org that will help fund that. We obviously can't fund the world like that, but they are an organization that will help people who are in crisis get out.
Mm-hmm.
But just hearing that there's another world out there,
Yeah.
kind of like back in the 60s and 50s when gay men would come out, they knew to get to either the large city of New York or San
Right.
Francisco.
Right.
They knew somewhere along the way they would pick up, here's a brighter world. And that's
Definitely.
thank you for doing this because there is a brighter world out there that people can find and hopefully
Oh,
have some
come to
hope.
Spain. We love it here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. And maybe we'll have you
Absolutely.
back on in about 6 months and catch up.
Okay, sounds great.